Do the Baltimore Ravens need Zach Ertz? We talk about that and so much more coming up on this Purple Friday edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm here with you, your host, Kevin Allstriker of Ravens Wire. And as always, we're here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much, as always, for being here with me, making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every day. You're free and available all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube and anywhere you get your audio form podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We are here. It is December, officially hit December 1st. No Shave November over, so I might have to do something about this little thing I've been going on. But here with me, Rocco DiSangro, Fox 45. And a bunch of other places. Not so much facial hair on Rocco, but I want to ask a question because we're in December, Rocco.
Yeah.
When was the appropriate time? Because Christmas music now, Thanksgiving is over. I think now we can say it's appropriate. But I was hearing Christmas music in October, early November. Where are you on the Christmas music spectrum? It annoys some people. Some people don't think it's a big deal, but where are you?
I'm going to tick some people off here because I think the last time I was on, somebody said like I was too much for sunshine. So I'm coming in heavy here with the Christmas music and saying that Christmas music should not be played until December 1st. After Thanksgiving, there's like a little buffer there, and I think you can get away with it. But October, you're crazy. I don't know what we're doing. It's like when things are popping up in like Walmart or Target. What are we doing here? No.
Yeah, you go into like the Home Goods, the TJ Maxx, and see like the Christmas section, and they're slowly bringing it out alongside the Halloween stuff, and you're like, we're not even past Halloween yet. But December is, of course, yes, Christmas music is okay because December is the Christmas month, Hanukkah, all the holidays for everybody. But Rocco, I'm excited to have you back talking Ravens here. It's a big month for the Ravens. They go through a gauntlet now. It's their bye week. They get to relax and have some mental, I think, regrouping and refocusing alongside the physical part of it, obviously, which is huge for them. I think the bye week comes at a perfect time, especially because you have those teams who have played since like their week 6 bye, their week 7 bye, and they're really going through it because that's a lot of football in consecutive weeks where Baltimore now gets that little rest here.
Yeah, man. And it's the bye right now. It's so beneficial because of that gauntlet. The Ravens could have taken that bye and they opted not to after the UK game. And they were like, you know what? We're just going to power through, do our thing. And it's really paid off for this football team. They're 9-3. They're the top seed in the AFC. And I think for Ravens fans right now, you couldn't be in a better position. Maybe you could with some of those blown leads, some of those games you should have won. And the Ravens, if that doesn't happen, they could have been competing for the best record in the NFL right now. But to be atop the AFC, that's something to take pride of. That's something that these guys take pride of going into the bye week. And it was cool to see in the locker room after that game, John Harbaugh have that moment with the guys. They're like, we're giving you guys the week off. They're all going nuts. It's like your teacher telling you don't have to come into school tomorrow or there's like a pizza party. That was the reaction of those guys. So really cool to see the Ravens going forward. They know what the deal is and they know they really have to buckle down. So come next week, gearing up for LA, they're going to be in game mode again.
Yeah, it's like you find out there's no school. You were watching the ticker back in the old days at the bottom, trying to see is my school here? Is my school? Now you just get a text or it's on the website or a phone call or whatever. But I know those players, people will never know. But those players were ecstatic about having the week off, and rightfully so. You see, again, it's not just the physical aspect; it's just resetting mentally, which is awesome. But there's been a lot of conversation, Rocco, about any last-minute improvements the Ravens could make. Some guys getting released, getting waived here and there. Some serviceable players on the free agent market. The one that took the NFL world by storm on Thursday was Zach Ertz, where J.J. Watt actually reported the news, took Adam Schefter's job a little bit. Adam Schefter did confirm, but J.J. did a good job on the reporting. Zach Ertz heads to waivers. Now he's 33 years old, but he's a tight end, and we know the situation with Mark Andrews. Probably not coming back this season. There's a slight chance that maybe it'll be on a deep playoff run. I'm not necessarily betting on that, though. They have Isaiah Likely. They have Charlie Kolar. They have Travis Vokolek. At the time of this recording, nothing's happened with Zach Ertz yet. So maybe by the time, you're listening, maybe he's signed, maybe he hasn't. But do you feel like, Rocco, the Ravens need him? Because for me, he's a veteran. He's a savvy guy, obviously very accomplished over his time in Philadelphia and Arizona. But the other argument is, hey, maybe they just want to see Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar in expanded roles. And I don't think those guys have done anything poorly to say, hey, we need to bring in Zach Ertz because nothing's going right without Andrews.
I don't think they need Zach Ertz to win, but I think Zach Ertz could help this team win. And Zach Ertz, his thing is he wants to join a contender. You got Philly sitting right there as the number 1 overall seed in all of football, and that's a team he spent 9 seasons with. It's a team he won a Super Bowl with, and he is 11 receptions away from breaking the all-time receptions record in Philadelphia Eagles history. So if you think that Zach Ertz isn't thinking about that or potentially reuniting with Philly, you're out of your mind. I think for Zach Ertz, Philly has to want him, and it has to be the right fit. For Baltimore, I look at it like this. What was the biggest need in the offseason for the Ravens, or one of the biggest needs going into the offseason for the Ravens? I would say pass rush, and that's what a lot of people – it was one of them, and a lot of people were like, all right, the youth, Owe, Ajabo, injuries as well, and you saw Ajabo, he's done for the year with that partially torn ACL. He had the Achilles last season, so – it's a tough break for them, but I would kind of look at this as adding layers. What is Eric DeCosta so good at? It's adding layers. It's adding a veteran to the room. It's adding someone with experience that isn't necessarily going to stunt Isaiah Likely or Charlie Kolar's growth in year 2, because that's not what you want to do at all. Isaiah Likely, he had a pretty good game. He had a pretty good game in LA against the Chargers, and he's going to come into his own. He had a solid rookie season when Mark Andrews was out. So Isaiah Likely is looking to take this next step in his second year. Same with Charlie Kolar. He wants to do the same thing. For Zach Ertz to bring him in, I don't think it would be a bad idea at all. I think Eric DeCosta will probably pick up the phone and maybe give Zach Ertz a call. Now, I don't know if that's going to make the magic happen, if it's going to bring Zach Ertz here to Baltimore, or if the Ravens are going to want to sign him, but why not? Why not toy with that opportunity and say, all right, this might be a guy we want to bring in here with Mark Andrews probably done for the year?
Yeah, and let's say it does happen. I think one of the things you're missing with Mark Andrews is that guy who knows how to work over the middle of the field as a veteran. Now, you can't replicate the chemistry that Lamar and Mark Andrews have. I think only they have that. But as a fill-in option, a guy who maybe people weren't expecting to be available this late in the year, Zach Ertz becomes, I think, pretty highly sought after for contenders. Obviously, he wants to go to one. And that, to me, I think, puts Baltimore in that conversation. And I think it doesn't necessarily take away opportunities from Likely and Kolar in a way where it'd be, well, now they're not playing. Now they're not getting snaps.
Yeah.
You can work in Zach Ertz, and you don't want to play Zach Ertz as an every down player at this point in his career. You want to have the versatility of Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kolar also. So it's not like you're bringing him in to be the focal point of the offense and take all the snaps at tight end. You'd want to use him in a tandem. So if this does happen, Rocco, what would he be bringing to this team outside of that veteranness?
I think he could be a safety blanket and fill that role. Let me stop myself here, and I don't want to freak Ravens fans out or have them, coming to the station with pitchforks and the torches running me out of town. Zach Ertz is not going to replace Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is in a category of his own. He's one of the best tight ends in football. Zach Ertz, what you would be getting with him is a former 3-time Pro Bowler. He was fantastic with the Eagles. Before he got hurt this year, I'm pretty sure he was leading the Cardinals in receptions. So this is a guy at 33 years old. He still has football left. He's not ready to retire. While he's on that tail end of his career, he could definitely help this football team out in one way or another. I think you're crazy if you don't think Zach Ertz can come in here and help the Ravens compete for a Super Bowl and add another weapon for Lamar Jackson. Like you said, Kevin, he's not going to be an every down player. He's not going to be the go-to guy. But I really think with Lamar Jackson, he has such a good relationship with the tight ends. We've seen it with Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely's trying to come into that role. Why not add Zach Ertz and help him out, add another weapon on the offensive end?
Yeah, and I think that, again, you can kind of make that last second addition. We definitely saw the Ravens do plenty of that in the offseason, but now as we're heading into the final stretch of the season, some reinforcements wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. And coming up in the second part of the show, we'll continue talking about some other reinforcements on the other side of the ball that maybe Baltimore could check in on. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. And as the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options. It includes spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. There's no Ravens game this week, so no Ravens over on FanDuel, but you can bet a bunch of other NFL games. So the Ravens, there are a bunch of important games going on. The Chiefs, the Jaguars, the Dolphins, all looking to challenge the Ravens for the top spot in the AFC. So if you want to bet on props there, over-unders, they have it all over on FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. We're back, our second segment, Locked On Ravens with Rocco DiSangro. I'm Kevin Allstreicher. And Rocco, we talked Zach Ertz. That would be a big offensive addition. And look, a position in need with Mark Andrews going down. Now, it's not like they need it because you still have Likely and Kohler. But on the defensive side of the ball, I think one name that everybody's talking about right now is Marcus Peters. Fan favorite in Baltimore during his time with the Ravens, definitely made an impact, but the Ravens move on, don't bring him back. I think that was more of a Ravens decision than a Marcus Peters decision. I think Marcus, from social media, kind of hinted he wanted to come back, but the Ravens clearly moving on with Rock Ya-Sin kind of replacing. It was a Ravens-Raiders swap, essentially, Marcus Peters for Rock Ya-Sin. But the Raiders move on, and pretty clear it was because of some effort issues. He got benched in their last game. And we know from his time in Baltimore, Rocco, it wasn't like he was the most willing tackler in the world. He definitely showed some of it, but he is a player that was more a ball hawk, savvy veteran who could force quarterbacks into bad throws. Now, this conversation, maybe if the Ravens corners hadn't stepped up, like a Brandon Stevens, Ronald Darby, et cetera, they're probably getting Marlon back after the bye, which is going to be huge. There might be a real conversation of saying, well, the Ravens need to bring Marcus Peters in the building because they're not getting anything. But this is the best pass defense in the league. So to me, I don't think that it's necessarily a need. You want to bring him back on the practice squad on a veteran minimum deal, doesn't hurt. But they don't need him to come in and play big snaps. It's a cool feel-good story, but it's not a move the Ravens have to make right now.
Kevin, I would completely agree with you there. I don't think this football team needs Marcus Peters at all. I'm not saying that they don't maybe want to reunite with him, but I really don't know if that's the case. I don't think you change anything really right now on the defensive side of the ball with how good they're playing, with how great they look, and the weapons they have and the pieces they've brought in. Now, if Marcus Peters was playing, having a fantastic season with the Raiders, and for one reason or another, he got released or requested a release or was injured and said, you know what, I'm having a good season. I want to get out of here. You guys are, terrible. And I want to go to a contender. That's one thing. That was certainly not the case this year. There was such a decline for Marcus Peters with the Raiders and a significant drop-off. Would you want to bring him back? You, Kevin? I mean, I don't know if I would mess with that and throw that into what the defense has going right now. I think this is a special defense. It could take this team so far in the postseason. And I really don't think you need to add Marcus Peters to that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, again, if corners just start dropping like flies, then you could revisit the conversation. But again, you're going to get Marlon back. They're relatively healthy, knock on wood, at the position right now. And they have guys who are playing high-level football. Marcus Peters would probably be the fourth at best, fifth or sixth corner on this roster right now. Maybe he wants some type of role. I'm not sure he'd get that in Baltimore. So that's a conversation. But another one is Ndamukong. We haven't really talked about it over the last month and a half or so. Kind of surfaced over the London trip and everything. Ndamukong saying that the Ravens had kind of kicked the tires and he's kind of evaluating his options. On the defensive line, I think, again, they have guys stepping up. Justin Madubuike's having a all-pro worthy season. He's going to get a lot of money this offseason. But you have Michael Pierce, underrated, playing at a super high level. Broderick Washington, Brent Urban, Travis Jones. Again, for Ndamukong on that defensive line, where is there the role? I just don't know if there was one for the Ravens.
With Sue, I'm just thinking here, maybe throw him on a practice squad if it came to that. But he's a guy that came in, and the Eagles, let me see, played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He played 6 games with the Eagles after they signed him in 2022. He played in that postseason game against the Niners, and he finished the year with 4 tackles and a sack. Now, Ndamukong Suh, he's a big body. He's a physical dude. But again, on the defensive side of the ball, I'm looking at the defense and what they bring and how physical they are. And the guys who have stepped up this season, why would you even want to mess with that? If someone goes down, different story. And I'm sure Ndamukong Suh will still be there, a couple weeks from now if someone, knock on wood, does go down or get hurt. That's not what you want to see happen. But for now, I think the Ravens are good on the defensive side of the ball. I really do.
Yeah, and to me, you could honestly, I like that idea, Rocco, because I can compare it to another situation that happened in Baltimore a couple of years ago. Dez Bryant, the Ravens, it's not exactly the same, but they brought in Dez Bryant for a workout. Reportedly didn't go very well, but they kept it on the back burner and said, you know what? If we need you later in the year, we'll call you. The Ravens they had a disaster at wide receiver. It was terrible. They said, you know what, Dez, we'll bring you in. We'll see what you have. Now, there wasn't any workout or anything with Ndamukong Suh, at least not to my knowledge, during the offseason. But maybe it's just a situation where they kind of checked in with each other and they said, if we need you, if there's an injury and there's something that happens, we'll keep you in mind. And then we can bring you in if we absolutely need it. So the fact that he hasn't been signed at this point, that's probably what happened if I had to guess.
Yeah. We'll see. No, I would agree with you there, Kevin, with that. With Sue, if they do bring him in, if he has a workout, if it goes well, like I said, practice squad. See what he brings to the table. And if you truly believe Eric DeCosta is not going to bring someone in or pick up the phone or ask someone to play here in Baltimore, if he doesn't think that they can help them win a Super Bowl, that's what he's going to do. Jadeveon Clowney, Kyle Van Noy, 2 of the greatest signings of the offseason. Look at what those guys are doing. 2nd and 3rd on the team in sacks right now. Those are fantastic signings. If EDC can turn that, can turn Ndamukong Suh into that, or it feels like he can bring that to the table, then listen, you bet your behind he's going to go out there and bring him in. But I don't see that happening right now.
Yeah, they're pretty stacked defensively, and I think it's a real reason why they're 9-3 right now. The offense is showing their flashes, but I mean, this defense, Rocco, I think is in line to become one of the best defenses in this team's history. And it's going to be big for them to step up as the year goes on, because we kind of mentioned it at the beginning of the show. They have a gauntlet of games coming up after the bye. The Rams, they're a sneaky team. The Rams are a sneaky one, but then you have the Jaguars, the 49ers, the Dolphins, the Steelers. Could all come down to week 18 against the Steelers for this division. Crazier things have happened. So to me, I'm very glad, and I know the Ravens are too, that they have put themselves in a position where they won enough early so they're not going to be stressing, at least I don't think, unless a historic collapse happens, they're going to be missing the playoffs late. I think they put themselves in a position where they've somewhat secured a playoff spot. Season's not over yet, but you take what you can with the wins. But they're going to have to show who they are as this year goes on, because this stretch will define them. I'm not saying it's going to ruin their Super Bowl chances, but it could have severe impacts on they're vying for the top of the AFC right now. They're vying for the top of the division. It's going to be big for them. So what are your expectations for it's weird to call it the second half because the season's almost over, but their bye came so late. But what are your expectations for the second half of the year for the Ravens here?
I expect the Ravens. I mean, this is going to be a gauntlet, like you said, Kevin. I expect them, looking at the games they have, I expect them to have a winning record in the final 5 games of the season. Like, not a winning record overall. That's going to happen. But I expect them to be at least 3-2. I'm looking at 2 of the games here that I don't know if I want to say the Dolphins really haven't played anyone. They have offensive weapons, but they're a team that, they beat the Ravens last year. That was one of the worst losses that, Ravens fans could probably remember, that comeback loss. The Ravens had it in the bag and they just got dismantled in the second half. And then the Jags, same thing, second half loss, overtime, or what was that? I can't even remember off the top of my head if that was an overtime game. I just remember the Jags going down, scoring, going for 2, and then winning the game right then and there. So those are two teams that beat the Ravens last year, that the Ravens are going to have circled. And then you got the 49ers right there. That's an 8-15 game as well. So, but the Ravens should beat the Rams. They should beat the Jaguars. The Dolphins, they should beat. And then the 49ers, that's really a toss-up. But for the Ravens to be a serious contender going forward, that Niners game, they're definitely going to have to be competitive in, because the flock, if they get blown out by the 49ers, I really truly don't think they will. This fan base is going to have a field day.
It could be a Super Bowl preview you're looking at right there. And if they don't show up for that game, I mean, again, it's going to be, well, we went up against one of the top teams in the NFL, and look what happened. There was a blow. I mean, again, I do expect them to be competitive too, but again, it's another tough travel. Like, they've been traveling all over the place this year, and that there's no exception to that. They have to go to Florida to play the Jaguars, then to San Francisco on Christmas to play the 49ers. So that's going to be big as well. But if this team keeps hitting on all cylinders, Rocco, and I know they haven't necessarily hit on all cylinders every single week on offense, but I think most people would say their ceiling is a Super Bowl ceiling because of how well the defense has played and the potential that the offense has, even without Mark Andrews on offense. Do you still believe that?
I do, Kevin. With how well the defense is playing right now, and the offense is hopefully going to continue to come into its own and find its way. Last week, there was a little setback points-wise. You saw, 13 going into the fourth, and then they got that Zay Flowers touchdown where some people think he should have scored, some people think he shouldn't have scored, but the offense is going to definitely have to be better going forward. Now, I'm not sitting here knocking Lamar Jackson and knocking the offense or knocking Todd Monken, but they know they have to be better. They talked about it. That's a big thing. You need to be able to score more points than 13. Like I said, I know they put up more than 13, but that's what I looked at. That much time left in the game. You only have 13 against the Chargers, who we don't even know if Brandon Staley is going to end up finishing the season. He's been such a bad coach, and he's all about the analytics. And sometimes you look at him and you're like, well, what the heck are you doing out there? So offense for me, they're going to have to be better going forward, especially in this final stretch. Prove why you're a Super Bowl contender. Prove to people out there, T. Martin talked about Lamar Jackson's chip on his shoulder. He's one of the most talked about and polarizing figures in all of football. Lamar's going to be the first one, and he's going to have to go out there and prove why this team is a Super Bowl contender with his arm, with his legs, with everything else as well.
Yeah, definitely shouldn't have taken all that to beat the Chargers. You mentioned it. They're just a dumpster fire, and a lot of that is the coaching staff. I mean, Brandon Staley should have, in my opinion, been fired after last year's playoff debacle against the Jaguars. Wow. But here we are. I don't think the Chargers have fired a coach in season in decades. So I don't know. I don't know why he's still the head coach. But here we are. They still got the win, though, and I think anybody will tell you that you take a ugly win over a pretty loss any day of the week. So they're 9-3 right now. I'm kind of up in the final part of the show. I'll be talking about some awards for this Ravens team, who's stepped up so far, who's been disappointing, and a lot more. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, this episode is brought to you by Gametime, and there have been plenty of frustrating ticket buying experiences in my life. Sometimes I wasn't sure if the seats were good. Sometimes I couldn't find last-minute tickets, and other times there were just no good deals at all. But you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And the Gametime app has a ton of great things going on with upcoming events in the Baltimore area. The Ravens, obviously, again, don't play a game this week, but they have some big ones coming up, of course, against the Rams coming out of their bye. Then they have the Dolphins and the Steelers at home at M&T Bank Stadium. And they have last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, and a lot more. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you a complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Plus, they're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. With zone deals, you pick the section, and Gametime picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We are back rounding out Locked On Ravens on Purple Friday. Kevin Allstriker still here with Rocco DiSangro. Again, happy December. We are here on December 1st. I appreciate everybody for tuning into the show, making us your first listen each and every day. Be sure to subscribe, video form, audio form. It's the same show both ways, and it is free, so free and available everywhere. But Rocco, let's get into a mini award show of sorts as we round out the episode here. Let's start with the MVP. I know that Lamar Jackson always gets consideration when it comes to this, but I think there are a couple of others you can put in the conversation here. So if you had to give the award out for the Ravens' most valuable player so far through 12 weeks, who would it be?
I wish you didn't say most valuable player, and I could just give it to a coach right now, because I would take that thing and handle it.
We could do most valuable player / most valuable coach.
I would give the MVP to Mike McDonald, the way he's just dialing it up on the defensive end. I mean, it's got to put a smile on your face seeing it, because this defense is next level. They're so good. They've been playing out of their minds as of late, and the statistics and what they're doing, it kind of speaks for itself. Player-wise, I'd give it to Lamar. And, you know, there might be fans out there saying like, oh, why are you doing that? Because Lamar Jackson puts this team in positions to win every single week. And when Lamar Jackson's not playing well, this team is not in a position to win. You take Lamar Jackson off the Ravens, they're a different football team. And that's why you look at the MVP odds and who's up there. Not at the top, but I'm pretty sure Lamar Jackson is top 3 right there in the odds, because of what he brings to this football team. So is it the easy answer? Yes, I'm going to take Lamar Jackson. Would you agree or disagree? And who would yours be?
I mean, I agree with you. It always is Lamar for me, at least, you know, when he earns it, he has. But I'm going to try to go. Well, first, I want to give my coaches, because now I want to give coaches since you gave a coach. For me, I'm going to give a tandem, though. I'm going to give a tandem coaching duo. I'm going to say Anthony Weaver and Chuck Smith.
I love that.
Are co-MVPs, because we can look Mike McDonald, like, yes. And I'm going to give answers different to yours. Obviously, Mike McDonald would be the answer, right? But we got to give credit to Weaver and Smith here, because they have molded these guys. And Chuck Smith comes in, Dr. Rush, and, you know, he's worked with Odafe Owe, and Jadeveon Clowney comes in, Kyle Van Noy comes in. The questions were, how much do these guys really have left in the tank? Are they going to contribute? And they've blown everybody away. Odafe Owe looks night and day from his sophomore slump he had last season on the interior. We know what Justin Madubuike's done. We've seen the flashes from Travis Jones, Broderick Washington contributes. Plus, Michael Pierce is having a super underrated year. So those guys, to me, I think are my co-MVPs. And then I'll say MVP player-wise, if it's not Lamar, I'm going to say it's Roquan Smith. I mean, he brings that leader mentality, the physical dog mentality that you want. He kind of reminds you a little bit of the Ray Lewis of that defense. He's embraced this Baltimore community. He's embraced this Baltimore team, seems to love it with the organization. And look, his play speaks for itself. He's knocking guys' cleats off and helmets and just imposing his physical will. And you talk about the Ravens defense, Rocco. The word I use is physical. And I think it starts with Roquan. Like it starts with him, because the players just rally to him, gives those speeches in the pregame huddle, and everywhere he's just an embodiment of what this team wants to be on defense.
I think when teams play the Ravens, or this is what the Ravens want teams to feel when they play them, is, oh crap, we have to face this defense. We have to see these guys. And they want to strike fear into their opponent's hearts. And I feel like that's exactly what this defense does. Roquan Smith is everywhere. That dude is a tackling machine. I mean, he's leading the team in tackles right now. He's got 126 on the year, and he is just a freak. Him and Patrick Queen, that 1-2 punch, I mean, it's been fantastic to see. And Queen's growth, Roquan Smith is a guy, I love that MVP pick, because he makes everyone better on the defensive side of the ball. So Chuck Smith, though, Anthony Weaver, love that. When I go to practices, I see players gravitate towards Chuck Smith, and they want to work with him. And Justin Madubuike was someone who was working with the outside linebackers coach as a defensive lineman. And where is Justin Madubuike right now at the top of the Ravens sack list? He's got 10 on the season. He's having a career year. He is going to get paid, absolutely. And Chuck Smith, Anthony Weaver, they have been a huge factor in that. It's really dope to see the progress and how these guys have developed, these players, and how they gravitate towards them in practice.
Yeah, it's something I've talked about before, but I think obviously the Greg Roman for Todd Monken swap gets talked about as the coaching move of the offseason, which obviously, rightfully so. but they did a lot of tinkering and maneuvering with that coaching staff outside of that move. You mentioned T. Martin. They moved him from wide receivers to quarterbacks. They bring in Chuck Smith. Greg Lewis has been working with the wide receivers. So they did a lot of that just under the radar, smaller move tinkering, and I think it's worked for them really well. But let's move on, Rocco. Let's do most surprising. There have been a lot of players that you could go here. I mean, literally almost every position I think could have somebody. But I think it speaks to the Ravens, their depth, and guys who stepped up early in the season for others who were out, who made an impact. So who do you think's been the most surprising, maybe came out of nowhere player for you?
I don't want to say a guy that came out of nowhere, but the most surprising because of what they're doing right now statistically and just how they wreak havoc on the quarterback is got to be Justin Madubuike. When Calais Campbell left and went to Atlanta, one of the biggest questions was who is going to fill that gigantic human being sized hole on the defensive line. I mean, Calais Campbell vocally, just with his play, he's an irreplaceable human being. Justin Madubuike has done such a good job, and he's not the loudest guy in the world. He's very quiet when you talk to him. He's very soft spoken, but he is not soft spoken when he puts that helmet and pads on. He's a freak of nature on the field. He's doing things. I mean, for a defensive lineman, having 10 sacks is impressive in leading the team, considering the pass rushers that they have. So for me, it's Justin Madubuike, and that is not taking anything away from what he's done in the past, but where he is now, that did surprise me, and I'm super happy for him and what he's doing.
Yeah, and it was a great surprise for him because they needed it. And look, you pick a time to have it for Justin Madubuike. This was the perfect time because he is going to be making a lot of money this offseason, whether it's in Baltimore or somewhere else. For me, I'm going to go Brandon Stephens. I've tried to hype up Brandon Stephens as much as possible here because I think the Ravens kind of misused him early in his career because of how much they are moving him around. And we've heard from the coaches, he was going everywhere. He was trying to learn different positions, but now he can stay and now we can focus. Now his career path's been kind of interesting. Started off as a running back at UCLA in college for 2 years, transfers to SMU, starts to learn corner, comes into the draft and gets drafted by the Ravens in the 3rd round, and then gets moved to safety. And then the Ravens move him to corner his second year. They move him back to safety this offseason, but they have to move him back to corner because there's so many injuries. And he's been the Ravens' number 1 corner when Marlon. And I mean, like, he's been a cornerback 1 in the NFL, replacing Marlon. When Marlon's been there, he's been a great sidekick to him all over the place. He locked up Jamar Chase in those 2 Marlon Humphrey-less meetings. He's somebody that I give a lot of credit to because you see how the Cardinals have used guys like Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins, where they're moving them every single year and they just can't figure out. And that wasted potential is because you just don't settle a guy in a role and have them do their thing. Well, I think now that Brandon Stephens is settled in, we're seeing the potential, and it makes me really happy for him, honestly.
Not bad for a running back, right?
Yeah, well, there you go. Mic drop.
Go from a running back to a defensive player. I mean, his growth has been incredible, Kevin. Brandon Stephens, shout out to him too, because he's balling out there right now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, honestly. But with the most surprising does come the most disappointing here, Rocco. It's, we got to talk about it from both sides of the coin. If you had to pick a guy who you were underwhelmed with, disappointed in so far this year, who would it be?
It's disappointing to even say this, but Ronnie Stanley, really. He's left Lamar hanging out there to dry a few times, and by few I mean multiple times. You look at injuries have been a factor, and he can't control that, but he can't stay healthy. That's unfortunate as well. This is a guy that is a former All-Pro left tackle, and lately it's like, where is that form? Ronnie Stanley needs to get back to that form. I don't know if he can. I hope he can find that, and I hope he does gradually get back to where he feels like he needs to be and where this team needs him to be. But right now, to me, Kevin, he's been the biggest disappointment for that reason.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate because I think he has been kind of hindered not only by the injury he suffered a few years ago, but he has had those bumps and bruises, got injured in week 1, got injured a couple weeks ago. So he's been going through. So, I mean, hopefully the bye it's beneficial for everybody, but I'm hoping it's really beneficial for Ronnie. Mm-hmm. Mine was Ronnie too, but again, I'm going to be different. I'm going to,
that was a plan. That was a plan to go.
I know, right? Yeah, I know. I'm going to say, I'll go Rock Ya-Sin. I know we talked about it off air a little bit. I think he's getting some flack that's undeserved just because he really hasn't played that often. I think that's more of, look, Brandon Stevens has played incredible. Ronald Derby stepped up when they've needed him to. Yeah, see, and I think the disappointment comes with he was signed to that up to $6 million deal, and he was kind of lauded as he's going to be the guy next to Marlon. He's going to come in and play all these snaps. And then I think the reports where he struggled in training camp, wasn't picking up the defense as quickly, and then by the time the season started, wasn't really getting a lot of playing time. When he did play a couple weeks ago, gave up some penalties and had some plays that weren't great. So I think just based off of the expectations, not that he's like cost the Ravens game after game after game after game, but I'm going to say the Rock Yassin. And I think it's a good thing I'm saying it's Yassin because there haven't really been too many. I mean, if we had talked a month or two ago, maybe you say Odell, maybe you say Rashad Bateman, but those two guys I think have ramped up as the season have gone on. Yep. And there aren't really too many players you can put in that disappointment tier, which I think is a testament to, again, why they're 9-3. But Rocco, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on. Please tell people where they can find you and what you're working on here.
I'm on, I hate to call it X, but I'm going to X. I still call it Twitter, at Rocco DiSangro, Instagram, R DiSangro, Facebook, Rocco DiSangro Sports. You can watch me on Fox 45 if you like what I say. If you hate what I say, you don't have to turn on the channel at all. But we're working on I do a podcast with Ryan Ripken, Rip and Rock. I'm doing the Ryan Ripken show with him. We have a really, really fun crew. Kevin, we're definitely going to get you on to talk Ravens because, I mean, it's fun, man. We really enjoy doing this. It's good stuff. They're having a great season. So the hope is that they continue that going forward. Everybody's happy. Nobody's complaining, but you never know what's going to happen. There's still plenty of football left to be played. So, dude, always a pleasure. I got to go get a quesarito from Taco Bell now. That's the move.
There you go.
Yeah, all right. Once I try that, I'll let you know how it is. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. You can find all the links to Rocco's work in the description below. And of course, he's everywhere. So be sure to check out all of his work. Rocco, I appreciate you. And I appreciate everybody listening for tuning in today on Locked On Ravens. There'll be no live stream on Sunday because there's no game. So the Ravens are on their bye. We'll be back right here on Monday talking more Ravens football. So be sure to stay tuned for that. I'll see you right back here on Monday on Locked On Ravens.